Today we're going to talk about conflict, and I'm speaking to you from the Oval Office because so much conflict seems to come from interactions with the gentleman who occupies this office and Congress. For example, the president wants to build a wall. The Congress doesn't. We lost so much time, so much money in that conflict. Was it resolved properly? And what was our reaction to that? Mostly we just took sides. Did any resolution come out of it? No. What did come out of it? What came out of it was a lot of blame, a lot of negativity, a lot of finger pointing. Did a wall come out of it? No. Did anyone's concerns on either side get resolved? No. That's negative conflict. Positive conflict is when resolution comes out of it. Positive conflict is when there's a creative solution to the problem. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I grew up in a conflict-ridden home. My parents, when they were together, they were either fighting verbally, fighting physically, throwing things around, talking stuff about one another to myself and my brother. My brother and I were happier a lot of the time when they weren't there, except that we missed our parents. And when they were there, we still missed our parents. Now, I like to say I grew up in Armageddon, and that gives me a big edge over a lot of other people in life. There's not a lot of things that faze me. There are not a lot of conflicts that really knock me on my heels today as a result of coming out of that environment. But as a child, I was frequently knocked on my heels. So imagine that you're in a household where your primary caregivers are at it all the time. A lot of you probably grew up this way. Imagine what that feels like. These are the people who are supposed to nurture you, the people who make it a safe environment for you to develop and grow. Your parents are there to love you and care for you. The two people you love the most are going at it. What does that feel like? It's terrifying. It's terrifying. So you probably would do what I did, which I hung out at other people's houses a lot because I just couldn't deal with it. In fact, I started developing relationships with other people's parents even. Two of those households had some really interesting qualities. One was Tom's house. Tom lived in a house with his mother. His father was dead. And his mother ruled with an iron fist. And it wasn't that she was mean, or it wasn't that she was abusive or angry. Actually, she was just one of those people you just knew you didn't want to mess with her. You knew that if she said, go through the hoop, you'd go through it. And part of the reason why you did it is at Tom's house, there was unlimited Twinkies and desserts and yodels and all the things that my parents never had. And for that matter, there weren't a lot of other kids who had that stuff. We could watch as much television as we wanted. No one said, how are you doing with your homework? We could play games. We could just have a general great time together. And yet, in that safe, conflict-free environment, something was missing. Something wasn't right about it. It was as if you had gone for a goal in your life and worked towards that goal, worked your buns off, and you reached that goal, got that raise, got to the mountaintop, got that job that you always wanted, and you felt hollow afterwards. Something was just missing. It was kind of like that. You had the Twinkie, you had Gilligan's Island, you play games, but something was missing. It just wasn't like juicy. Then there was George's house. George had two brothers. His parents were divorced. We'd play in one house, we'd play in the other. It wasn't that different. And there was conflict there, but it wasn't between the parents because they were in separate households. It was between the brothers. And interestingly, that conflict wasn't like what went on in my house. At my house, there were no boundaries. I mean, once my parents were at it, it didn't stop. And if it did stop, it was usually in a really ugly way. But at George's house, him and his brothers might get into it, and they da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da, and maybe one would pop the other. But there would always be a line that they wouldn't cross. You know, if one hit the other, they weren't bleeding, they didn't lose a tooth, they didn't have a broken bone. You know, it wasn't like that. And inevitably, when they had a disagreement, something new would come out of the disagreement. There was like this line that told them, all right, once we reach this point, we need to resolve this and make it work. Not just go to our corners and pout and be angry at each other, but actually resolve it and feel better about it. And that was totally alien to me. I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. And I learned later in life what that's about is understanding. Like, they understood each other. They walked in each other's skin. They were the Three Musketeers. They were a team. I understood later on that when people have that kind of relationship, they can have a disagreement, they can have a conflict. And when they understand each other's point of view and empathize with one another, even if they don't agree, they will create a win-win solution that was not previously available before the conflict. So in other words, they have a disagreement, they have a conflict, and something new comes out of it. And that's what I mean by all creativity is ground in conflict. It's this really cool thing where disagreement or opposing point of views generate something new. So here I am in the Oval Office. Imagine if Congress took the time to listen to President Trump's concerns, for example, and really understand them. And President Trump took the time to really understand Congress's concerns and really understand them. And they worked creatively at a new solution. Instead of what went on in my house, I don't know about the president and Congress. We'll try not to be any more political. It's just an example. In my house, it was about me, mine, mine, mine. You're such an SOB. How could you do this to me? You cheated on me, you whatever. It was always the other person's fault. And that's basically what negative conflict is grounded in. Negative conflict is grounded in, you did it to me, it's your fault. So if you're in a marriage, that might show up as, over time, as waking up with somebody who you're not even sure who they are anymore. It's like, how did I end up married to this person? They're not the person that I fell in love with. And what are they doing to me? He's never here. He's always working, or she's always preoccupied with the kids and never gives me the attention I need. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. Why can't I get my needs met? And there's no end to that. I mean, basically, when two people are in that space of me, you're at fault, there's nothing the other person can do or say, or there's little the other person can do or say that's going to break that pattern. What's missing is that relationship that George and his brothers had that I was talking about, that understanding, that walking in each other's skin, that, remember when you had a best friend? Maybe you still have one. What happens when you and your best friend get together? You say a few words, they finish your sentence, or they say something that hurts your feelings, but they know that they did it. Like, they look at you and they say, oh, hey, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And they talk it through with you, right? That's what I mean by understanding, that level of understanding. So how do people, when they're really positioned, get to that level of understanding is the question. How do you get to the point where there's disagreement and the possibility is present for a creative solution? The possibility is present to create something completely new and different. But you're so positioned and so full of blame and feeling like a victim on some level that you can't get there. The trick is to learn how to listen, which is really difficult when you're in that spot. So an exercise that my clients do. One says to the other, I really want to understand your point of view. Tell me your point of view. Help me out with this. And they're like, nah, you don't. You don't really want to hear it. No, I really do. And they say, you come home from work, you barely talk to me, you eat dinner, you don't thank me, you hardly talk to the kids, then you want to have sex with me, and there's no connection between us. Of course, while they're saying that, if you're like me, your reaction is going to be, I work my ass off for this house, to put a roof over her head and to put food on the table. Why didn't she appreciate it? Well, when that stuff comes up, you just got to acknowledge it. It's like, you don't stuff it. You just say, thank you for sharing. I know that story. It's present. And you really want to listen to them. And then you're going to say back, wow, honey, I heard that you worked all day and took care of the kids and put food on the table and you're not feeling appreciated. And I want you to know, I really do appreciate you. And she's going to say, oh my God, you totally get it. Or she's going to say, that's not really what I meant. And you're going to say, oh, well, tell me what you really meant. And you're going to do that again until she says, you totally get it. And then you're going to say, is there more? And she's going to say, yeah, you know, my mom is such a help. And I know you hate it when she comes over, her and dad, you know, you feel like they're meddling, but you can't tell you what a relief it is to have someone on my side, to have someone who's there for me with the kids. And, you know, your tapes are going to run about mom and dad and all that. Again, you thank that for sharing and you reflect back. You know what? I hear you really need help with the kids. And I hear that your parents are really helpful with that. I'm just going to say, yes, you get it. Like that's the beginning. And then you ask them to do the same thing for you, to reflect back what you have to say to them. And the trick is to talk in a way that's responsible. And this sounds easy. Better way to put it is, it's simple, but it's not so easy because we have all those stories. I know that when I went through this, I needed help with it. Though I couldn't have these conversations with my wife at the time without my story coming up. And in the end, we sat down with a mediator who helped us separate out our stuff and separate our feelings from the concrete. And we negotiated an agreement about how to raise our children because we couldn't live together. And that mediator helped us understand one another's perspective, understand each other's needs. And I was willing to give a certain amount of money, and she was willing to give a certain amount of time that when we first met with the mediator, we weren't willing to. So, you know, whether you're saving your marriage or whether your marriage is over, you're probably going to need some help with this, is what I'm telling you. Because even though it's a simple recipe, a lot of feelings come up. And I'm making myself available to you to do that. I have a lot of clients who've been through this. I'm making myself available to you at no charge to you and with no obligation. It's a free phone call. And what I promise you is at the end of the phone call, you will have a next step. At the end of, in fact, if you call me with your spouse, it should be even better. The two of you will have a next step. The two of you might even have a quick lesson in how to have a conversation together. That might be your next step, is to just have those conversations. No obligation to me, but you will know what to do next. So I'm going to leave a link for you here. Reach out to me at your leisure. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how you and the person that you're having your biggest fight with can work together to understand each other, have an empathetic connection to one another, and come up with a creative solution like we're hoping our government's going to do, like George and his brothers did pretty consistently. Something new, something different, something that works. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you for listening.